Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Nile.
And I'm Kyle. And it's been.
It's been.
It's been.
That's what you meant, right?
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks. Just a lot of shitty things going on. You know, a lot of fucked up stuff going on
in the world, or you personally?
I mean, it's both, really. But
yeah,
yeah. So I don't know. I just I don't really. I didn't like come to this episode with anything funny to say, so I'm gonna go ahead and say maybe you can take over and kick us off with something really funny.
Well,
I'm not bringing anything to the table this week.
Well, let's see if I can coax some of that fucking giggle sauce out of you, because I think this is a good episode to do on a day when you're not feeling a lot of joy in your heart. You know?
Oh, good. Okay, I do need that.
I think this is an episode that we can just have some fun with and enjoy in kind of a throwbacky way. Because today, Kyle, I ended up doing. I look this. As a lot of my episodes tend to do, it starts in one place. I kind of get distracted. I move into something else. The thing doesn't pan out quite the way I thought it does, and it becomes a different episode. And I ended up basically doing a grab bag of early UFO encounters that all have kind of a similar theme that we're going to kind of find throughout the episode. All three of the major encounters, there's like some tied stuff that you'll hear a little bit of, but three major encounters here. Take place between the late 60s to the late 70s, so we're dealing in about a 10-year period here.
The good, that's the good period of UFO stuff.
Exactly.
Too. Like, and can I just say, I can't remember where I was. It was, I think, like on Twitter. I was like, I have a group of UFO enthusiast people who I follow on Twitter, and I think it was there that I was hearing them sort of discuss, like these people were discussing, and I agreed with them, which is why I'm bringing it up now. I just wanted to sort of, before I launch into it, say this is not an original thought by me.
Yeah.
And if I knew who these people were, I would credit them. But what I think they were saying is true. So
I like the dramatic pauses. We got some real Shatnerian dialogue.
Stupid ass preamble. So they were saying, like, these sort of like one-off stories, the ones that are like explained or discussed in like a relatively quick manner. I think like there's something to be said for like a UFO story that you can talk about for an entire hour. Definitely. Mm-hmm. But I think that like when a UFO story, I mean, okay, I'm going to come up with like one of the really obvious examples, or at least obvious to us, I think at this point in time. But like the pancake bakers from Mars, it's like
that can't be a whole episode.
No, but like it's almost better in than some of them. Like I think that story is 10 times more interesting than like Roswell at this point. And I also think like it's like those stories tend to just be like a microcosm of the whole fucking UFO spiel, like, and I think that it tends to be more entertaining, or at least more interesting in a lot of cases. So I must say I'm very excited, because I actually was thinking about doing a similar thing. I dive into these like multi-part episodes about like ufologists or whatever, but I was like, I should like talk about like a UFO case.
Yeah, it's fun sometimes, because like we go really hard into certain areas occasionally in a way that's very I love doing. I think it's very fun. But I love to sometimes just go and be like, what are these like weird little forgotten curiosities, which is kind of how I would describe at least 2/3 of these. They're like, there's a chance you've heard of at least one of them, because they all have like will pop up in different areas in a certain way. But they're all a bit less known than a lot of the major cases out there. So,
I also want to throw out there too that we talk about trying to find these stories can be kind of tough sometimes. Our local library moved and opened up again recently, or at least the one that's like near me. And I think I'm going to fucking finally snap it off, get a library card, and go see what I can find in our local branch of the library, and maybe see if there's some microfichery that I can dig into,
You should get this is kind of a weird poll. But do you remember, did you ever see that TikTok guy? This was probably a year or so ago.
The chili oil guy who like dumps a bunch of you weren't talking about the guy who dumps like the hot chili oil on like ghost peppers and eats them. And he has like a funny voice. Have you seen that?
I'm not talking about Spice Talk. I think I know exactly who you're talking about. But no, I wasn't talking about them. I was talking about the British kid that like loved trains. And he would wear that helmet camera.
I love that video.
And would run after trains. I think you should wear that same helmet camera and do TikToks type videos of going through old microfiche in the public library.
I mean, okay, I guess I could do that. The thing is, like, here's the thing. Yeah. What makes that video of the guy with the trains so good is his legitimate, unbridled, passionate love for the trains.
Yes. The joys he's witnessing from the mundane.
Like, yes, the camera is giving him kind of a funny face. We can admit this. We can say this. But it's also the pure joy. And the thing is, I would love to find something that gives me even like a modicum of the joy he feels watching those trains. And it's unfortunately probably not going to be going through microfiche. But what I will say is, if I were to go through like 60s Indiana newspapers or whatever, and like, if I ran into a UFO story doing that, I would probably like do like fucking soy face.
Would you like dab on?
No, I wouldn't dab. I'm no. Dab is like, that's intentionality. I would probably like make a face that would get me made fun of by Zoomers for sure.
Okay,
but so maybe there's
which
something
you also
to
can
your
use
idea.
in our Discord as an emote that we have made of Kyle's face.
True.
So sign up for our Discord. Sign up for our Patreon.
That was so. Just to be clear, I was like instructed to pose specifically for that many years ago. To do the pog face, as it once called, but we don't. I don't think they do pog anymore. I think it's. I don't fucking know. I'm a boomer. Anyways, sorry. What were you gonna say?
No, you're good. I guess I probably had some other thing to go off on. I sometimes, but like a lot of times the tangents kind of slip away if you don't jump on them immediately. So I think without any further ado, we can launch into the beginning of the first story. And for this first story, let's go all the way back to 1973. And we're going to be hanging out in America. We're going to be in the state of Alabama in a town called Falkville.
I know this one.
You know this one?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. This is probably the most well-known one. You actually might know two of these. I'm going to guess that you don't know the third.
Look, I know what this is, but there's a very good chance you will tell me something I don't know about this particular case.
Look, this one is kind of a warm-up. It's fun to talk about because okay. This whole thing, the Falkville Metal Man is what we're talking about here. It's a case that is interesting because there's photos. There are photos taken specifically by the person that witnessed this alien, that you can still find to this day. Like MUFON had the negatives, like they are very easy to come upon on the internet. Now what those photos contain, I'll let everyone decide for themselves how far they believe what's in these photos. So on an autumn evening, in October 17th of 1973, a 26-year-old man named Jeff Greenhaw, who had just recently, I think at the beginning of that current year, had been named chief of police for Falkville, Alabama, was about to go to sleep when he received an emergency call around 10 p.m. that would set into motion this whole course of events. The call was from a hysterical anonymous woman who claimed that she had seen a UFO landing just outside of town in a field that was owned by a local resident named Bobby Summerford. I don't know if that's really important. Although he was actually off duty at the time, Greenhaw decided to go out and check out this distressed call, help this woman. So he grabbed his keys, his handcuffs, his revolver, and his camera on the off chance that he might be able to get pictures of something, went into his truck, radioed the call in, and took off to where the supposed flying saucer was currently sitting. When he got to the scene, he got out of his truck and started to look around the area, but he didn't really see anything out of the ordinary. It just was a normal field. And so he started to kind of go back to his vehicle. But he decided to take a drive all the way around kind of the perimeter of the field before he called it a day. He eventually, kind of after completing this, went down this final kind of narrow gravel path to check one final thing. And that is when, as he's going down this narrow gravel path, he sees a being in the distance, approximately 75 feet away. He gets out of his truck and decides, okay, so I see a person, something's happening here. Let me go check out this guy. He depending on what the reports read, this is a fun kind of anecdote that kind of a side thing that I found while reading various accounts of this that I think is interesting. You can, because the guy that witnessed this is the chief of police, is a cop, you get differing reports on some kind of little details of this that I think slant it in different directions. Because a certain, like in this case here specifically, when he first sees the being in the distance, he gets out of his truck and decides to go kind of approach on foot. You'll either see it being that he got out of his truck because he thought he thought that someone might need assistance in kind of I'm helping someone in my sworn duty. But but if you I found him recounting the situation and he thought he was simply dealing with an idiot, is what he said.
Oh, wait, so the cop is like, this fucking guy is...
The cop probably thought he was dealing with like a drunk guy, you know? But other places will like whitewash it and
people will report that the cop was doing his coply duty to help people. That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, he got out of his truck and concerned that someone might be in need of assistance. Like the tone of it drastically shifts when you're depending on what you're looking with, and the closer you get to actually the direct quotes from the man Jeff Greenhaw,
he has maybe a slightly more aggro. Aggro is maybe not the right word, but like
not even. It's just not even aggro. It's just like he doesn't paint himself as a hero or a valiant person in these things. This is a guy that got called into work at 10 p.m. when he was off duty and has to go deal with some drunk guy, is kind of how he talks about it.
But mundane shit, because it's a cop, he's kind of getting painted as a hero or a good Samaritan automatically in I'm guessing some media outlets. Is that where we're going here?
Just various. It's not even like I couldn't, because these cases are from a while ago. A lot of them were, you would get the same text like everywhere. and I traced it back as far as I could, and I couldn't find a specific place that like gave me a bias one way or the other or anything. It just is like there was one that was actually from a newspaper where they interviewed him in 2010. And that's where I got the quotes, including that he was simply dealing with an idiot. So it seems like before that point, when they straight up just like interviewed the guy much more recently, it got painted in a much more like valiant cop way, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of interesting.
No, it is interesting. I mean, it's kind of the same sort of like it's very similar to how like we'll attribute more credibility and validity to a sighting if it's police or military personnel witnessing it. Like it's kind of in a similar vein, I think, as that. But I don't know. That is interesting. I also wanted to say one of the reasons I am familiar with this story is I have like I don't know if this makes me look like a weird person or not. You can tell me. But I have a collection of illustrations and artwork, like fucking PNGs and JPEGs of artwork of aliens, cryptids, UFOs, things like that. I especially love like old science fiction pulp novel cover illustrations. But so I have a collection of that stuff that I've like gone out of my way to look for online. And there's actually a really what I think is kind of like attractive about it to me is like it's kind of for certain cases that are maybe not as well known, and the depictions of the thing are few and far between. Well, if you want a really, really nice, super cool illustration of the quote-unquote Alabama Metal Man, go look up an artist named Thomas Elliott, freelance illustrator. This person has an illustration, and I'll send it to you now. It's super cool of the cop confronting the Falkville Metal Man.
Hell yeah,
it's super cool.
I actually, just because you said this and this happened yesterday, when I was doing research and everything, there was originally a different third case that I was going to talk about. And in doing research on that case, I found like illustrations from like Brazilian like comic magazines depicting the case that I was looking into.
I know what you're talking about because I have read quote unquote. I have looked through that entire comic.
Are we thinking the same thing?
Probably.
The Potosi Sheep Slayer?
Oh no, we're thinking of something different.
Ooh,
but I did read I did look through a Spanish language. Oh shit. No, I'm totally misremembering. It was French. I found a French comic that was it was about like Adamski and the Venusians.
Oh hell yeah.
And
I love that
and
stuff.
like Orthon and stuff. And I was like, this is I was like I genuinely spent like a good hour hunting down online copies that were like high res of that comic, because I was like, I've never seen this before. I've never seen somebody like do a comic book illustration of George Adamski. That is wild to me. So
oh man,
maybe I don't know what you're talking about actually.
I was looking for a book that I have that has illustration stuff, and I was going to see if any of these cases were in it out of just curiosity. But it's not in here, so I'll do that later.
I just like I want more illustrations of this stuff. I have a whole collection of what was it? Not Times Magazine, Mysteries of the Unknown. If you've ever seen those old, like I want to say 80s and 90s magazine collections that are about like, you know, the paranormal and UFOs and stuff. And I eat that shit up because that's what I was reading when I was in elementary school. Was that stuff?
You gave me your dupe. I have one of those because you had a dupe of one.
Oh yeah. Those are so sick. I love those.
It's great. I love the one the thing that I was looking for a second ago that I don't have in the room with me right now is a thing called Big Book of. It was a series of comics, like a bunch of comic short stories that were depicting weird cases. There's like a book of like serial killer ones. There's a book of like they do these different things, and it's all like comic artists that half of them now are like famous. It's really kind of cool to look at. I'll find it later.
That sounds really great. Oh my god!
Anyway,
I'm so sorry. Can I?
Go ahead.
I know I told you this off air, but I need to speak it out into the world because talking about comics made me think of it. One of our previous many years ago now guests on the show, Vera Drew, her movie came out. Her movie, The People's Joker, came out, and it's fantastic. And I recommend everybody go see it and support her. And I went and saw it, but like to be clear, it's like a psychedelic queer clown movie. It's really incredible, and it's like multimedia, and it's fantastic. But I came out of that movie. I'm sorry that this is so derailing what we were talking about, but I came out of that movie, and I immediately, like within moments, ran into the author John Green. And that made me leave reality for a good moment. I'm not going to elaborate too much, but I don't know him as well for his writing works. I know him a bit more for his online writing, I guess you could say. His blog posting is what I know him for better.
His essential Tumblr readings.
Yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there because the more I say it, the more it becomes real to me. Because it felt so unreal. But comics and stuff, it made me think about that. And you're talking about serial killers, and I was like, there were like the illustrations of, I want to say it was like, was it John Gacy who was the clown serial killer?
Gacy.
That was in the movie, and I just made connections in my brain, synapses firing. Anyways, sorry for the aside. Check out The People's Joker.
I really want to see it. I'm gonna try to hunt down a screening as close to me as possible as soon as possible.
Falkville Metal Man. Sorry about that.
He was going. We were talking about the optics of how people talk about how cops are represented by journalists and shit. So he thought that he was simply dealing with an idiot. He then tried to talk to this person in the distance. He said that he said something to the effect of "Howdy, stranger," and he didn't get any response at all. So he didn't push his luck. So he then went back to his truck and turned the high beams on to try to see the person a bit better, and then continued walking towards them. Once he got to within about 15 feet of the being, he finally was able to get like a really good look at it. And he said that the figure was probably slightly over 6 feet and wearing a reflective material that he described as my initial thoughts were maybe aluminum foil, but there were no pieces around there after it was all over. I don't know what to believe at that point. It looked like the head and neck were kind of made together. He was real bright, something like rubbing mercury on nickel, but just as smooth as glass. Different angles give different lighting. So it almost seems like there's kind of an opalescent kind of vibe to it almost, where
like the ending of Annihilation.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Actually, you know what it does remind me of is another UFO case, which I'm not going to come up with the name off the top of my head. I'm sure some people out there will remember.
Is the Pascagoula?
Yeah, the Pascagoula guy is kind of like, I seem to recall tinfoil being another one of the descriptions thrown around about this like mechanoid man thing.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. You can kind of put a pin in that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that did come up while I was researching, which is why it was on the top of my head.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so we have this man. He also, there are some other details. Some reports that you'll find indicate that it had a kind of childlike or simian stature. It stood like a child or a monkey, which I assume means like kind of arms
hunched,
outspread, kind of like hunched. Yeah.
Huh.
It's kind of like, but he also said that there was an antenna sticking out from the top of its head. So I saw one. This is a total side thing, and but I don't remember where it was. It was on like one of the wikis or like the Cryptid Wiki or something like that. One of those types of places that have comment sections.
Yeah.
I saw someone theorizing that this was the inspiration for Bender from Futurama. And that just really made me laugh. They, instead of just like trying to depict like a kind of old school robot, they specifically used a like kind of forgotten UFO case from 1973.
That kind of tracks, but I mean, honestly, Bender is just like generic robot, but like, I can kind of see how if you're UFO brain, that leap makes some sense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in fold number 23 mode, then you probably could find that connection. But I just thought it was kind of amusing.
That's a good one. Because
like the pictures that you can find, it kind of does look like that. Now it looks like something else more, which we will talk about. But it does kind of have that vibe of that kind of robot. So once he got a good look at this thing, he basically ran to grab his Polaroid camera, and as quickly as he could, he snapped 4 photos of the being standing in front of him. At that point, I think it's at a lot of places will say, I think he laid the developing Polaroids on the hood of his truck because pretty soon after that, the creature seems to kind of like run away. There are places that theorize that the flash of the photography made it think it was being attacked or spooked. It basically spooked it, and the being then just turned and ran across the field much faster than a human being should be able to run. Greenhaw noted that it actually was moving in the direction of a town called Lacan, which is 3 miles away from Falkville. That probably is the wrong way to pronounce that. I don't know, actually. Lacon is the town name. So he kind of reacts by getting back into his truck and decides to try to chase this thing down. So we now have this like fucking sleepy police chief guy in a truck chasing a metal man across a field in a truck.
A metal supersonic chimp.
Yeah, like imagine like a child like running at full sprint in a fucking metal suit across a
and you pull up next to it and it says "Bite my shiny metal ass."
Yeah,
which is a detail that gets left out of the story. That's probably also why people were making the jump to Bender. Was that part.
Yeah, I think that is why. So he eventually, because he was driving across a field, was only able to get his truck to about 35 miles per hour. But he still was completely outrun by this creature. He says that the way that it ran and leapt as it was going across this field defied gravity. He said it ran in a bizarre way. It seemed to have springs in the feet for propulsion and could cover about 3 meters in every way. He was running faster than any human I ever saw. So this thing is not moving like a human being should. Now, at some point during this pursuit, Greenhaw has stated that he lost control of his truck and slid into a ditch. So basically, he crashes his truck, and at this point, the creature slipped into the darkness and disappeared. So this leaves now this guy crashed on the edge of a field with 4 Polaroids that might have pictures of an alien on them. So he eventually, once he kind of is able to take a look at the Polaroid, he notices the first one is entirely blank. Somehow the first Polaroid is just black and nothing is in it. However, the next 3 depict what looks like a human-like figure wearing a wrinkly metallic suit that's reflecting the Polaroid's flash. Now, the thing that this looks like is like a fire suit.
Yeah,
like it looks like a flame protection. Those kind of like when people are like dealing with lava,
Yes,
it looks like that. I don't know. That's what everyone thinks it is. Like people think that this is some type of hoax that Greenhaw may or may not have had a part in. It either could be a prank played on him, or it could be just he's actually involved. But people think that this is basically just a dude in a suit.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. It is kind of weird to me that it's just either you believe the story or you don't. Usually there's some sort of little tidbit of like, well, this person, was famous for being in a fucking prankster club, like there's usually something like that. I'm not saying that, this guy saw an alien, but does the story end there?
In terms of the encounter, yes, there is kind of the postscript of what happened to him after this.
Okay.
So he was pretty much instantly met with skepticism and kind of outright derision in a lot of cases, sometimes ridicule. He states in that interview that I was talking about from 2010, I was hired in January of 1973, and this all came down October 17th, 1973, and he would resign from his position in the weeks soon after.
Okay.
This basically ended his time as chief of police. Supposedly, okay, so I don't know exactly the timeline of this because we do know what happened to the photos. In that interview that I was talking about, he says that the 4 photos were in a safe, that he kept them for approximately 10 years, and then someone broke into his home and stole them. He filed a police report in 1983 regarding the break-in, and the also missing was his service revolver and a shotgun.
Wait, so somebody stole the Falkville Metal Man photos?
That's what is claimed.
No, I just want to be clear for people who have not seen these photos before, or at least the one that I'm thinking of. It does in fact look like a dude in a suit.
Yeah, there's a reason I didn't like totally say that until after we were done talking about the fun part.
Okay.
These ones look pretty fucking fake to me. But the thing that is weird is like MUFON had the negatives, so I don't know, because if he were just trying to cover up if the robbery were like to try to get him out of the public eye or whatever, the photos are still out there. So like I don't fully understand the robbery as a tactic in this case. So I guess the robbery might just be real and they didn't know what they were stealing or whatever. It just seems kind of like a weird thing.
If we want to be incredibly cynical, and I do. No. I mean, the most cynical possible way to read that is like MUFON is the group of people who are most likely to kind of just believe him automatically, probably. But then, like, a reporter comes around and is like, can you show us your incredible photos of this alien? He's like, oh, sorry, but
yeah,
they're gone now. Somebody stole them.
It's just weird because like MUFON had the negatives, and even they said Walt Andrus, the analyst who was the director of MUFON at the time that analyzed them, concluded that the whole thing was probably a fabrication.
Oh, MUFON said
it was. Even MUFON said it. Yeah, well. Like so. I don't really know. And they basically think that this is where the Pascagoula thing comes up. This happened pretty soon after the Pascagoula incident.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
They think that this was kind of a copycat. So the thing that people don't know is if Greenhaw knew it or not. Like, I could totally see this if he had been, a new police chief comes into town. He's young. I could see people fucking with this guy.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't know. It's just one of those things that this is the most famous case of the 3, and it's like the most completely like easily debunkable.
Yeah. I'm not here. I think that this case is also incredibly fun. Like the fact that this is like happening, like it's October 17th, Halloween is in the air, but it's not quite there yet. And this is just the perfect setting for a UFO encounter. But it does look kind of silly,
Yeah.
Whatever. I like it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the continuing like the cynical reading, it's like, you know, he staged the photos being stolen or whatever, so he didn't have to answer for it. I kind of doubt that. Like, I maybe somebody legitimately did steal these photos for whatever reason. I mean, you know, who knows? And honestly, I don't even know if like answering that question's even like helpful in any way, but
it probably isn't. Like, there's not really any, it doesn't change anything. It's just one of those things that there are things that just stick in my brain when I'm going around on stuff.
Would that mean though that like somewhere out there the original Falkville Metal Man photos are like just out there somewhere? Because if so, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, like they could show up. I have no idea. Like, you can find, they're easily findable online, but the originals are not. We don't know where the originals are, so it could happen. Yeah, someone might find them in an attic somewhere in 10 years.
That would be so cool.
But if you want to find the quotes and the more recent info, talking to Jeff Greenhaw specifically, the Coleman Tribune is the resource there. If you look up Coleman Tribune, Jeff Greenhaw,
is he still alive? Do we know?
I believe so. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't find an obit for him, at least in my research.
Cool.
So,
well, that's a good one. That's a great. I love that story.
Yeah.
And I love that creature.
Yeah, he kind of had a bit of a tragic life after that.
No.
Not like fully tragic. He just like it. He kind of just became the town laughingstock for quite a while and had to like kind of shut off from the world for a bit. And like all of the articles basically end by saying he didn't have any financial gain or any type of gain at all because of this. So we think that it's less likely that he made it up entirely.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So. It does. Yeah. You know, it does. Maybe he was somebody was fucking with him. That is really truly a possibility, I suppose.
So next, let's take a little bit of a jump in time and place. We're going to go 5 years later, and we're going to take a trip across the pond into Europe, where we're going to go to England, specifically to a town called Risley.
Okay.
Where we're going to talk about the Silver Man of Risley.
I'm picking up on a theme here.
Yeah, you might. So this is one that this one took some digging to even find much about. Like
those are the best ones.
I found some good resources. Like the main source that I found that wasn't even able to find. I found someone on Reddit copying the text of the articles from American Monsters that gave the deepest amount of information on this one, along with digging through the Fortiana.org forums. I was able to find some stuff, and this one's interesting. I think this one's fun. So, March 17th, 1978, a service engineer named Ken Edwards was driving home from a trade union meeting in Cheshire, and his route took him through a deserted industrial area that was kind of very run down at kind of a weird place. And at the time, as far as anyone was concerned, Ken was just a very normal guy, worked a straight job, didn't have no reason to think this guy would be pulling any weird bullshit. But as he passed the vast Atomic Energy Authority complex, which is going to become the kind of focal point of a lot of this stuff, he picked up a weird figure across his headlights that was standing alone at the top of an embankment. So he stopped his van and decided to get out and take a look. When he first saw this thing, he thought it was just some man climbing. But he realized soon, as he came closer and closer, that it was kind of a gargantuan humanoid figure that was walking down this very steep embankment near this nuclear facility. The creature was over 7 feet tall, and according to Edwards, didn't really look human. He says the arms came out of the top of its shoulders. So instead of like on the side, like the front.
Yeah.
So the various depictions I've seen of this thing, it has kind of T-Rex type arms. Like they jut out straight.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh.
Its body was silver, like it was covered in a radiation suit. However, its head was black and shaped like a fishbowl. And it was said to hold its arms straight out like a sleepwalker or a zombie. The thing that he like really kind of noticed immediately was it was walking. it's hard to describe. It was walking down this really steep embankment at like a 90-degree angle in a way that would cause a normal person to fall. Like, it was just walking down a very steep hill like it was flat ground and not falling.
Okay. This motherfucker encountered a creepypasta monster.
Basically. But that's why he thought originally it was the guy climbing, because it was just going in this really weird, like, way that you just can't really do.
This fucking thing breached SCP containment. Like,
exactly. So when it finally got down to the road, Edward started to notice that it appeared to have no knee joints. Its
good. Legs
were only articulated at the hip and caused it to have kind of like old school B-movie robot legs.
Sure.
You know?
I need you to understand that everything you're saying so far, I'm picturing vividly.
Yeah. So this is the thing that I love this little detail so much. One of the things that I found once I found, like, whenever you start looking at a new case, there's like different ways that people talk about it and different names that it gets called. And I found a couple articles that just refer to this case as the alien with bad knees, which I think is fucking hilarious.
That's good. I like that. I can relate to that alien.
Yeah. So this one's out there for all you people with bad knees. The engineer estimated this figure was at least 7 feet tall. We talked about that. And a couple articles specifically relate the metallic exterior of this being to the Alabama Metal Man of Falkville. So there are people in the UFO community drawing comparisons between these two cases already, which is the kind of, fuck it, it's the theme of the episode. We're talking about some metallic beings today. So it had no discernible features on its face except for a pair of glowing eyes. And once it got down to the road and was walking, it seemed to notice Edwards, and it stopped and turned its head to look at him. And after that happened, two pencil-thin beams of light shot out from its eye sockets and came through the windshield of Edward's car and hit him dead on. The effects were immediate. He started to feel dizzy and lost all sense of time. And then this is a quote from Edwards in an interview that I found. My head was swimming with strange thoughts. There was hundreds of them all racing through my mind at once. I also felt very odd. It was a sensation like two enormous hands pressing down on me from above. The pressure was tremendous. It seemed to paralyze me. I could only move my eyes. The rest of me was rigid. He also claimed to have thought at some point in like a loop just running through his brain continuously, is this something from outer space, and what does it want with me?
That's the two giant hands pressing you down from above. I feel like I've heard that description in an alien encounter before, but it's not coming to me what one. But I guess they're just describing the sensation of being paralyzed.
Yeah, to me it evoked sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
But I like probably slightly different, but that's what it kind of felt like, you know? So a moment later, he regained control of his muscles, and he noticed that his fingers that were kind of gripping the steering wheel were throbbing, and he looked at his hands, and it seemed that his hands had become sunburnt, where like that beam had hit them. And the circuitry of his radio transceiver that he kept for his job had entirely burned out during this attack, I guess. There are reports out there that claim the circuitry, like the thing actually exploded. I don't think that's actually true, but I think that comes from a quote from Ken Edwards where he said that his thing he said it exploded, but all the descriptions that seem accurate, that's like the euphemistic use of the term exploded, like it stopped working. The thing was totally busted, but it didn't literally erupt into flames, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, I kept seeing both sides of that thing to the point where like I had to just like dig down on, did this thing actually erupt into an explode? Like, was there a mushroom cloud or did it just stop working?
This thing fucking cast explode radio on this guy's car. This is one of those cases that just has enough weird little details that it is fully surreal. That's fucking weird. It's a weird story.
I love it. This one, there's more to it. I love this thing. So when he looked up from seeing his now sunburnt hands and busted radio transceiver, he noticed that the NSD had apparently lost interest in him and was going straight for this massive, like 10-foot tall barbed wire security fence that surrounded the fire station that was on the grounds of the nuclear facility. And it literally just walked directly through the fence. It raised its fingerless hands upwards, paused, lowered its arms, and then walked directly through the fence like it didn't exist.
Okay. I thought it was about to like drink electricity like an Ultraman kaiju.
Oh no. That would be cool as shit. But no, it just straight up like it does something with its arms and then just walks straight through a fence.
Damn,
without it seemingly like a ghost. And as soon as it went through the fence, the creature then went up the hill next to the fire station and disappeared into the woods beyond. Edwards was stunned by this entire episode, and it kind of took a moment to try to compose himself and process what had just happened. He later claimed that he remained motionless on the roadside for just a few minutes before he threw his vehicle into gear and went home. But when he got home, it was approximately an hour later than it was
missing time.
Yes. So a drive that should have taken approximately 5 minutes ended up taking an hour. I think the difference is approximately 45 minutes. He says that there were 45 minutes of missing time becomes a part of this going forward. So but that night he didn't really think much of it. He just thought, weird stuff happened. I lost track of time. This was fucked up. But I just wanted to be done with it. So he went home and just kind of tried to move on. But the idea of the missing time kind of lingered. And when he talked to his wife, about it that night, she was anxious and decided, and like, he said that she normally would have been very mad at him, but she noticed how fucked up he looked and how distraught he was. And she kind of listened to him, and while she didn't immediately it took a while to convince her, but she eventually believed him and decided to kind of be a supporter with him. But there are versions of the story that have a detail that I really like. So in some cases, it's basically like he opens the door, walks into his house, and sees his wife, who kind of looks at him weird for a second, and he goes, "I've seen a silver man." But then there are other versions of it where that same thing happens, but before he says anything, he walks over to the liquor cabinet, pours himself a shot of bourbon, takes a shot, puts it down, and then says, "I've seen a silver man," and pours himself a glass of bourbon and sits down.
I personally have to believe that second story there, because everything that this person described, just if that happened to me, I'd be like, I need a stiff drink immediately. Yeah. I mean, how do you fucking process that?
Yeah, I love the drama of it. It seems like a really over dramatic stage play where the husband walks onto set and it looks all disheveled and fucked up and everything, and his wife's worried, and he just storms across stage to pour himself. It's very theatrical in a way I greatly enjoy.
Don't talk to me until I've had my 2 shots of bourbon.
Exactly. So they notice a little bit after this, as they're talking, that his watch had stopped, and it stopped at exactly 11:45.
Classic.
Which is approximately when the encounter would have happened. So they think that the being stopped his watch. So the next morning, they decide to go to the local police station. They talked to the on-duty officer, who thought they were crazy. But after a long enough time, Edwards, in the way they describe it, is, quote, obvious sincerity, got won over the cop, and they decided to contact the atomic plant and they went back to the scene of the encounter with some policemen. When they got there, they were met with 20 AEA security guards who Edwards told his story to, and none of them really reacted at all. They decided to take kind of a look around the area, but no one was willing. None of the people who work for the atomic energy plant were willing to go into the forest that the being went into. They all they looked around the grounds and everything, but they wouldn't go into this forest for some reason. Mm-hmm. And they basically, this whole thing came with the energy of they were humoring him. They didn't really take this guy seriously. The atomic energy people either were actively trying to get in the way of it, or at the best reading just thought this guy was a crank and were humoring the police effectively. So the only things that were supposedly found in this summary of investigation were a noted oval patch of flattened grass on top of the embankment that some people take as a kind of, you know how when UFOs land, they leave flattened grass and stuff sometimes?
Yes.
So they took that as some point of as being where the being came from or something. It was, some websites call it the landing site when I don't know what was landing.
Right.
Exactly. I guess just where the being came down from, wherever he was.
The assumption being that this thing had to have come from a UFO since it's an alien.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing that I think is entirely unrelated that will get brought up as evidence is while looking around the grounds, they found the corpse of a dead rabbit, which some websites and some accounts will take to be a fucking innocent casualty of the I-beam. They think that accidentally this fucking alien no-scoped a rabbit by accident and killed it. That's totally ridiculous. But it was a detail that made me laugh. So there you go. And I didn't find any dead dogs on this in doing this research, so I had to give you the next best thing.
Had to give us a rabbit.
Yeah. So all this to say, basically, he won the cops over enough to do at least some form of investigation, but not really in any actual depth. So, they then basically continued to try to do a summary examination, and the police even thought they would bring him back to this place, the power plant again, and they had a fireman who worked there who come out in one of his silver radiation suits that they had on site to try to be hey, isn't this what you saw? Let's clear this up with an easy mistake. And Edwards, when he saw it, was entirely unfazed and said it looked nothing like that, and that's not what I saw. So they tried to get him to admit that he just misinterpreted something, and he held firm. At this point, the police basically thought there's no more we can do on this, so they just closed the case. But Edwards was not deterred. He still was kind of, confused by the whole thing. He had sunburnt hands somehow, and his radio was broken. So he actually did take the radio to get fixed, and he went to one of the people that works with the company he works for and had it kind of the techs look at it. And the entire inside circuits were fried. So a massive electrical surge basically was responsible for the state of this thing. So somehow this thing got hit with a bunch of electricity and fried. Then the UFO investigators got brought into it. A lot of the information, I think, as far as a source, there's a book of kind of UK British UFO encounters by investigators Jenny Randalls and Paul Wetnell, which I think is where a lot of the information on this case comes from. They suppose that they say that the damage to the radio took 3 weeks to even figure out what the fuck was going on with it to deal with it. So I don't know how seriously to take the level of severity they put on how fucked up this machine, this radio receiver thing was, because they make it out to be the only way it could have been like this is from something crazy, something that doesn't aliens had to have killed this thing. I don't see how that's how you can make that real like claim. You know, it seems a little reachy to me. So anyway, the incident was not over, however.
Oh God.
6 days later, March 23rd, 1978, Edwards once again found himself at the site of the event, this time with a man that we only have identified in the places I could find as a freelance UFO investigator from Leeds. And when he went back on site with this UFO investigator, he was overcome by the same feeling he had that night looking at the creature, along with some of the physical sensations he had experienced. This led him to kind of freak out, and he wanted to leave, but he'd forced himself to not do it. They got out, walked up the embankment to look around. And once they reached the top of the embankment, for some reason, he and the investigator went their separate ways. And of course, right then was when Edwards noticed the Silver Man standing in the distance. You can find a quote about this in Randall's and Wetnell's article that says, "It was then in the distance that he saw the figure again, atop the wasteland and walking away from him." So like I don't know why this thing only shows up to fucking Ken Edwards. But he like, it seems to be that only he will see it. Because the apparition entirely disappeared before the other guy was able to see it. And the other UFO investigator guy never saw anything.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of giving, oh God, the guy in Florida who I did like 3 episodes on, the Gulf Breeze UFO probable hoaxer, whose name is not coming to me right now, but like that was also his vibe where like over and over and over he was like investigated and only he ever really got to see any alien action. So
and there's a third encounter. There's a third incident that is linked to this by Ken that kind of stretches it a little. Like I think the story is really interesting. There are things that don't there's a lot of conveniences in it, you know? So the final part of this story took place on April 2nd, 1978, so a little bit after. And there's not an actual sighting here, but according to Edwards, he and his wife were driving home that same route he was taking that fateful night at about 2 a.m. following a day trip to Yorkshire, when he was overcome with the same feeling that he had the 2 previous times that he had encountered the Silver Man. He felt compelled to bring his van to where he had seen the being the first time. He and his wife then climbed out of the vehicle, stood in the center of the road where he kind of just felt to continue to feel this sensation, and it was increasing in intensity. And at that point, he supposedly blacked out. And then when he came to moments later, he just ran back into his van, and he and his wife drove home as quickly as they could. And at that point, Ken Edwards pledged to never travel that road again, no matter how far out of the way he had to go. So I don't know, like, there's like one more little thing that happens outside his house on April 12th that yet again, there's like this weird hum, and he goes outside and there's nothing there. And that same night, supposedly a UFO was seen around the area, but like the claim gets like less and less each time, because it goes from I saw a being and it shot me with its laser eyes to I saw a thing in the distance when I was alone after the guy that was with me left, to I was driving with my wife and felt a weird thing and blacked out for a couple seconds. And then finally I heard a weird hum and woke up in the middle of the night, and later I found out there might have been a UFO around. Yeah. And it's weird. The like
sort of peters
the scaling of it is weird.
Yeah.
In a way that I haven't necessarily come across before in a way that feels like this. It's weird. This one is weird to me.
Yeah. No, and I'm going to be real with you. The being itself is like the imagery of that will stick with me, I think.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool and kind of eerie. Anything with like it's anything with like a humanoid sort of body, but with its limbs and shit in like the wrong order and length is always gonna mess with me. So that's but that is a weird way to end it. To just kind of like a couple more little things happen, and each one it was diminished. It's definitely weird.
There are a couple like postscripts to this. The first of which that I think is kind of interesting is years later, when Randall's one of the UFO investigator people we've already talked about, and another one named Peter Hoff, I don't know how to say that name. They exposed the fact that the Atomic Energy Authority building at the time of this encounter were doing what was they call, quote, unusual experiments. So basically, these investigators claimed that this facility was doing weird experiments at the time of this encounter, but they cannot tell you what those experiments were or anything about them. So it's just this weird little thing where someone's like, oh, they were doing these fucking crazy experiments in there at the time this might have been tied to that. Well, what were the experiments? I can't tell you. And it's so frustrating to me.
Yeah, I would definitely want to know more info on that, because you can't just tell me weird experiments that I can't give you any details on.
Yeah. But the actual craziest thing that comes out of this to me is the timing of this could not have been worse for this man specifically, because this was the first UFO encounter that got media attention after the release of Close Encounters of the Third Kind in this area. So he became the fucking UFO guy.
Yeah.
Like, UFO mania had been brought back a little bit, and everyone was tying into the fucking Spielberg movie by talking about his UFO encounter and making him like a public, like, laughing stock
fixture. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he became like the center of attention in a specific way for a time. That led to his home being swarmed by reporters, amateur ufologists, curiosity seekers, and disciples of the Aetherius Society, which was a cult that claimed to channel messages from extraterrestrials.
Oh, I've heard it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep. And believed that Edwards had been chosen by God to see this alien.
Oh my God.
There also were people who would come there just to yell at him that he was a charlatan. So like his neighbors.
Yeah, but like I feel like getting yelled at for being a charlatan in England, it's like you don't have to do much to provoke that response.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could fucking, what's a British thing? Your garden.
You could garden. You could be doing opening some Jammy Dodgers in your yard.
Yeah, you're like opening Jammy Dodgers too loudly out in your garden and having a fucking biscuit too loud. And I feel like I don't know where I came up with this whole thing.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know. Your neighbors in your Britain and your brain are very finicky.
Well, okay, my entire like, you know how we joke about how like we just like culturally osmosis things into our brains through like pop culture and media, which is, you know, a very normal way to get information about things.
Yeah.
And small town England, my like view of that is pretty much shaped by the movie Hot Fuzz.
Okay. Yeah. And that entire city that entire town that takes place in.
So I think they're a village.
Yeah, whatever it is basically an HOA. So it's
exactly. That's my point. So
that movie
I'm
is
assuming
basically
that's what it's like everywhere.
Yeah. I love it's Wicker Man by way of the HOA. I love that movie. So so this guy basically just got mobbed for a very long time by everyone that had any opinion on the case that became like a nationwide thing. So yeah, this guy unfortunately had a really rough go of it for a while after this, and then had an even rougher go of it because within a year of the now infamous sightings, Edwards became unexpectedly ill. He experienced a loss of energy and suffered from severe stomach pains. So he decided that he had to go to the hospital, where he got a bunch of tests done, and they found that he had cancer of the kidneys.
Oh shit!
He had major surgery to try to remove it. However, the cancer returned in his throat.
Oh, Jesus.
Within 5 years of the encounter with the Silver Man, Ken Edwards had tragically been killed by cancer.
That's fucked up.
So the last couple of years of his life were basically seeing a fucked up thing, being drawn back to it, then getting mobbed at your house by becoming a local celebrity, and then getting cancer and
UFO
dying.
Cultists.
It's
Jesus. I need to know more about these experiments.
I do too. I need to do more looking into that, because I couldn't find that. Only appeared in like one source, and that one source was basically putting in there as like, they said this. They had no backup to, like, it was unexplained experiments and they had no more information. So I need to find out more for sure.
Wow.
So
that sucks.
UFO people.
So is this one of like the only cases we can think of a person being just straight up murdered by an alien?
Yeah, like it's one of, people do think in the UFO community that like I-beam basically gave him cancer. Like that's the thing that people will kind of take from this. But I think this is like one of the most body count UFO encounters.
Yeah, I mean, there's others that involve people contracting cancer or illnesses, but like, yeah, that's wow. That's a wild story. I'd never heard that one.
Yeah. And he yet again also didn't really get, like, he never like wrote books or anything or did UFO tours. Like he so people also think he made no money off of this. Why would he make it up? Which isn't like the best evidence, but it's not bad.
I get the point, but like, yeah, we can't, it doesn't totally discredit anything, but yeah. Weird one.
Okay. So there's one more very short one that I just wanted to tie in that took place back in May 4th, 1969 in Brazil.
Nice.
In the town of Bebedouro, I think is the name of it. When 24-year-old José Antonio da Silva, who was a soldier at the time, was fishing on a remote lagoon when he heard voices behind him. And he, well, as soon as he like noticed that there were figures kind of moving around behind him and there were voices and everything, he felt a burst of light hit his leg. Other sources will say burst of fire, but the most common way I heard it talked about was like a strike of light. And this caused him to drop his fishing rod and fall to his knees. He then saw two beings that he described as troll-like humanoids, differing from ordinary humans only because of unusually large green eyes, with reddish beards that went down to their waists, with shoulder-length hair and also bushy eyebrows. Their noses were very large and long, and their ears were also large, and their mouths were fish-like and toothless. They also had pale skin, and they all seemed male and were all approximately 4 feet tall. However, there's a leader that we'll talk about in a second that is a little over 4 feet. He's got a couple inches on the rest of them. They all wore like coverall garments beneath shining light-colored spacesuits with metallic helmets that had eye holes in them. So this is where they fall into the thing. They also have these fucking mechanical spacesuits with like fishbowl helmets like the last guy. But their arms aren't T-Rex arms. They are basically just like trolls. Like trolls in fucking spacesuits.
Okay.
So they also have this thing coming off them, this tube that is stretching to a metal container, like a backpack on their backs. And they carry this like small, I saw it described as a trumpet-like gun. It's that which can fire a beam of light that can, as we'll find out later, both stun a man and also weirdly discolor a wall. We'll get to that. So,
alien guns used to be so much better.
I know.
It must be said.
This episode is truly a set phasers to stun episode.
Yeah, this
maybe
guy
at
with
worst set phasers to die in 5 years from cancer.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, that cartoon ass trumpet gun. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
We don't have enough stories of things with like big, goofy boo boo blasters.
Yeah. So now they've stunned this guy, and they basically take him to their craft, which is this tall gray cylinder with both ends capped by what were described as like black umbrella or Chinese hat-shaped discs, approximately 3 meters in diameter. And long struts braced this kind of upper disc thing. It's this one's hard to kind of fully wrap my brain around visually, the craft specifically, because like it's detailed but not understandable, you know?
Yeah, it almost sounds like an upright cigar shape.
Yeah, it kind of does. So they took him into this gray room with brightly colored lights coming from somewhere they can't. You know when in Alien Encounters they'll talk about like lights from an unseen source. You know?
Yeah.
We're dealing with that kind of situation. The room looks like a fucking alien med bay almost. And they had him sit on this bench. He felt paralyzed and was having trouble breathing. And they placed this helmet on his head and strapped down his feet and his waist and then secured themselves. And this is when one of the beings then seemingly in some sort of pilot's chair operated a lever which caused the entire craft to go into the air. Yes, this guy's getting taken up in an alien spaceship. So
Perfect.
As they were taking off, the beings that were surrounding him, they're all strapped down in their chairs for takeoff. All started to talk animatedly amongst themselves in a language that he didn't recognize. They traveled for a long period of time that I didn't find described how long anywhere. It just says like a long period. And then the craft like flips on its side and lands. Once the craft lands, the beings yet again block his vision with this helmet and take him to an area where a bunch of these beings were talking, and they sit him down and take his helmet off. And a being stands in front of him who is much hairier than the rest of them, slightly taller than the rest, and has waist-long hair. I think that's basically like the main difference is this guy's a little bit bigger and even hairier. He seems to be a leader of some kind. And also in kind of to the side, he notices a shelf, this like low, I saw it described as a stone shelf, which was weird. Where he saw the bodies of 4 human men, one being described as a black man, one some form of lighter brown skinned person, and then 2 seemingly white people filling out the 4 people on this shelf. They were seemingly passed out or incapacitated in some form, kind of in stasis on this shelf. Various pictures of earthly objects decorated the walls of this room. And as he was kind of looking around, a being came in carrying a bundle of his clothing and other possessions. And they started to go through all of his possessions with him, examining the contents, passing them around, and anything he had a duplicate of, if he had 2 of anything, they would keep one of them. They also kept his ID for some reason. And this is when, for a reason that I don't fully understand, one of the members of the crew pulls out one of their weapons and shoots it at the wall, which causes a discoloration, which is why we know that the guns are able to discolor a wall. I don't know what that does, but it's part of the story, so there it is. At this point, the leader addresses Jose in that language that he can't understand, along with various gestures and illustrations on a kind of tablet thing that he's holding. And Jose kind of starts to understand that they are kind of asking questions about earthly weapons, and they might want him to get them weapons or something. When he refuses and tries to tell them no, they give him this green liquid in like this almost like dice-shaped glass. You can find pictures of it online, like not pictures of the actual thing, but sketches and stuff that people have made renders. And when he drank it, it immediately restored his strength and helped him to understand the leader's communications. So seemingly this thing can help you understand other languages for some reason. Babble juice, I guess. So the leader then basically offers him a deal where he would remain on Earth for 3 more years and then spend 7 years with the aliens, after which he could then return to Earth with these beings as his guide and kind of work with them. So he is effectively going to be like, he gets the offer to be like almost like a diplomat for these aliens in a way, in a weird kind of thing. So before he really can do much about this offer, he starts to play with the rosary that he has hanging around his neck, which seems to anger the leader, who grabs it and pulls it off his neck and starts to pass the rosary around to the other beings. And this is when the weirdest thing in this entire story happens, that I don't know what to do with this at all, because as the alien beings are passing around this man's rosary, he sees a thing that is not seen by the aliens, supposedly, where a vision of a saint appears to him and speaks a message of comfort to him in Portuguese. He says that he's not at liberty to reveal the contents of the message from this being, but it disappears and leaves him feeling more comforted, I guess. So he has like a fucking angel talk to him real quickly or something, like
moment, yeah,
a religious experience in the middle of this alien encounter. That I don't know what to do with that.
I have an answer, but I'm gonna let you finish the story.
Yeah, go for it. So it seems like while he was having this vision, the alien beings had become annoyed with one another, and 2 guards blindfolded him and returned him to the craft for the long journey home. And when they landed, they removed his helmet, and that somehow caused him to lose consciousness. And the last thing he remembers is them kind of dragging him into the dark. He then woke up dehydrated and hungry, just in the woods, basically. And he started to try to find a stream or whatever, and was able to catch some fish since he had the stuff that he brought with him, minus the ID and any duplicates. So he is able to kind of take care of himself for a little bit. But he doesn't know where he is, and he also has a leg injury from where they shot him, I think. And he finally comes across a passerby when he finds a road, and learns that he is entirely in another town. So he was dropped off some other fucking place that I don't know the actual distance between, because I saw it described as 60 kilometers, 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers, and 200 miles. And also 600 kilometers. So I don't know how far away, I don't know how far this guy traveled while abducted by aliens. But it's one of those, probably.
Okay.
So he eventually just realizes that he has to make a train trip home. So he gets a ride to the train station from some kindly person, and then takes a train to his hometown. And when he gets to his hometown train station, a guard approaches him and basically just assumes that he's a copper thief, which I guess was like a big problem at the time because he looked all disheveled and kind of fucked up and haggard. So he gets like hassled by a security guard about stealing copper that he didn't do. And because he has no ID on him, the security guard straight up just like takes him into the office for inspection. And Jose had to then tell his story to this security guard, who seemingly took interest and called a local journalist to interview this man. This just led to like, it didn't really go a super far away. It just was like, that was basically the end of it. Like,
yeah,
he got back. There was a little bit of hubbub, but it didn't really go anywhere, and I didn't find anything else to do with the encounter after that.
You want me to tell you what happened here?
Yeah, go ahead.
This guy was drugged and kidnapped by the CIA.
Hey, Kyle, do you want to one leading theory of this thing is it has a lot of similarities to Jacques Vallée's ideas of initiation ordeals and initiation rituals by secretive organizations, etc., which is basically yes, that is what you're talking about. People think that this was some sort of fucked up like psyop thing, not psyop, but like a kidnapping by some sort of government organization that he got drugged.
That's exactly how I would read into this. It's like the best, like if we're believing everything that this person is saying, and I'm inclined to believe, that's the best. I think one of the better terrestrial explanations for what happened to him. If he believes that all of that happened.
People also will link this to the Antonius Villalobos account.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind. Is like the same idea there. Why wouldn't it also happen? I don't remember where Villas-Boas was.
It was also I think it was also in Brazil. So yeah, okay. We're dealing with.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
geez,
those were my 3 stories of metallic men, UFO, aliens.
Those were phenomenal. I let you tell that last story, but I was also very interested in it. So I was kind of like letting it wash over me there. Yeah. But like, I also did want to hit you with the gut punch of like, this is a CIA drug kidnapping.
Yeah. It 100%. It's one of those things where it's like, once you like know the signs of that, it's like, oh no, that's exactly what
there's
that was.
There's a bunch of things in here that just like, this is a recurring theme. Yeah.
Yep. Oh man.
Wow.
Whew.
Those are great.
So
those are great.
I've got kind of a bigger, I think what will be a quicker big question since this went a little long. Tonight, we talked about 3 different types of alien beings across this episode, which means by law, I have to ask you, Kyle, Falkville Metal Man, Silver Man of Risley, and Spacesuit Trolls, fuck, marry, kill.
Oh, Jesus. I'm going to say we're fucking the trolls because those just end up being like people. It's like they're trying to CIA like psych me out like with drugs and kidnapping. Mm-hmm. Then I'm just going to fuck them.
Kyle, they're going to discolor your walls.
That's fine. That discoloration will probably go away once like the whatever drug wears off. So those are just people, right? Like that's like guaranteed to probably be like a safe bet as far as fucking goes, because the other 2 are kind of wild cards.
Yeah.
I'm marrying the Falkville Metal Man.
Okay.
I don't know, like the broad shoulders and sort of squat. It just like
you like the simian gait.
Yeah, well, it's got like alien henchman vibes, so like you kind of feel like you'd be provided for.
Okay, yeah.
In a way, like they got a job, you know. And the Silver Man, what was that, Risley?
Yeah.
Look, hey, I respect the Silver Man of Risley in a way, but my fear outweighs my respect, and so we're killing the Silver Man of Risley. That thing can cancer 5 years blast you with a beam. Like I that thing, and it just everything about it is eerie. We're killing that one. Sorry.
I think that's totally reasonable, and probably the safer bet, honestly. I didn't fully consider the cancer part when I was thinking of this.
Oh, so
earlier.
You're fucking the Silver Man?
That's not what I have written here.
Oh, okay.
So what I was going to do is I was going to fuck the spacesuit trolls, because there's a lot of them. I don't know if I want like group sex on
like
a lot of the time. So I think that's better as like a one-off.
More bang for your buck. I get it.
Well, like I don't want that as like a lifestyle all the time.
Sure, but like why not try it out with the space trolls?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not get railed by a bunch of CIA agents?
Yeah. That's basically what yeah, exactly.
Oh man, Freedom of Information Act of this ass. Oh man. All right.
Christ.
So I was gonna marry the Silver Man of Risley because he stuck around. Because there's this repeat encounter. He kept coming back for you. So I think there's a reliability to that I do enjoy.
Okay.
But I also would have to ask him not to give me cancer.
Yeah, you need the thing that you need to confirm about that guy is whether or not his presence is like cancer.
Are we dealing with a Spider-Man rain situation here?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's getting a sequel soon. Honestly, I just found that out. They're doing another one.
Wow, that's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and that leaves me killing the Falkville Metal Man.
Yeah. What the hell?
You
just don't like a little like. I don't know.
The phonies.
Okay.
No,
fair enough. I
can't
really argue with that.
It just came down to like the Falkville Metal Man. It was the encounter is so nothing that like I don't feel like it has a lot of personality, and I don't think it would really do a lot for me. So I'm gonna just get it out of the way.
Fair enough. Well, Nile, that was a great that was a great couple stories of silvery aliens. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. How do you feel about moving on to some business?
Let's do it. So if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/itgetsweirdpodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, all the ones that are still active, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, any of those that still are around. If you look up It Gets Weird on your favorite resource, you'll probably find us. Come check us out. Sometimes we stream on twitch.tv/itgetsweird. Check it out. If I know you all are out there like, ooh, I love live streams. I love games. Check it out. Check it out. Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. If you send us a good email, we might read it on the show. That is entirely possible. Just don't send us ones that suck. Those will not be read.
Oh, okay. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you get a bonus show, It Gets Weird TV. Right now we're discussing season 2 of the X-Files. It's me and Nile just chatting about the X-Files. At the $5 tier, you get another bonus show on the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. Basically, you want bonus content? $2 tier is great. $5 tier is even better. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday on your own special Patreon feed. And you get access to the Discord. We're hanging out, chatting about all kinds of stuff with our listeners. You can talk to us directly in there. You can talk about which of the 3 silver aliens you're down to fuck, marry, kill. Let us know. We also have a $1 tier where you don't get anything. You're just saying, hey, I like your show. Here's a tip. Thanks for doing what you do. Here's $1 a month. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird Podcast. All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for all of your support on the show. This has been It Gets Weird. I've been Nile. And I'm Kyle signing out. Peace.